This sheet looks organized until people start typing whatever they want. Let's fix that with data validation. If you've ever had a spreadsheet get messy because of inconsistent entries, this is one of the simplest fixes in Excel. I'll show you how to create dropdowns, limit numbers, control dates and text, and avoid the beginner mistakes that make data validation fail. Let's set sail. Data validation controls what a cell is allowed to accept, and that means it gives you cleaner spreadsheets, fewer typos, and more consistent sorting, filtering, and formulas. Data validation helps prevent bad entries, but it does not automatically clean old bad data unless you go back and fix them separately. Today we're going to look at a simple home chores tracking sheet. There are 3 kids who get assigned tasks, each with a due date and a priority. If we look at column C, which is the assigned to column, you see that we have names entered, but they're not all entered in the same way. But we can clean that up with data validation. The first thing we're going to do is select the cells that we want to add data validation to. And then we're going to choose the Data tab, and under Data Tools, choose Data Validation. Right now it allows any value. We're going to change that to a list, and we are just going to type, because there's only 3 kids, we are going to type each of their names. You may notice there are other tabs here for input messages and error alerts. Those are useful when you want to give people extra guidance. But for this video, we're focusing on the main rule, what Excel should allow in the cell. And what we've done is if I click on one of these cells, you see there's a little drop-down arrow, and now it will let me choose from the 3 names. Right now, I have Samantha in this list, but it really should be Sam, so I choose it in the drop-down to fix it and choose Sam. And I can continue through the rest of them. Now, if I wanted to change this and say I change it to Jenny, you see it gives me an error and says that this value doesn't match the data validation for this cell. And you can click retry and it will let you enter it again. So you can try to type whatever you want. If I type Sam, it will accept it. But if I type something that's not in that list that I just created, it will give me an error. So this prevents errors from happening when you're typing things in manually. And it also gives you the opportunity to just choose from a drop-down for each item. Now let's take another quick look at how that data validation was set up. I'll select all of them again, and data validation. And you see, I just entered their names directly. There's no quotes, no spaces, just each name separated by commas. And I could add more names if I wanted to do that. Now we also have this date column. And you see I have some of these are dates and some of them are tomorrow or Saturday, but I want actual dates in there. So while 5/21/2026 is okay, tomorrow is not something that I want to see in this sheet. So I'm going to set data validation for due date. I'm going to select all of these cells and data validation again. And this time I'm going to choose date, and I'm going to just choose greater than. And since this is the beginning of May, I'm just going to type May 1st, 2026. And now all of the dates have to be after May 1st, 2026. So now if I try to type tomorrow here, it's going to give me an error. I'm just going to hit escape and go back to May 21st. The tomorrow that I already had in the cell will stay unless I go to try to change it. But I'm going to go ahead and put a valid date in here. And I'm going to do the same for these, but in this one, I'm going to show you if I do April 30th, it gives me an error message again and says that the data validation that April 30th, 2026 does not meet the data validation restrictions because it had to be after May 1st. So I'm just going to cancel that. And then I'm going to enter a date that actually fits that criteria. And I'll do the same for this one, just so that everything is clean, which is what I want. You can also restrict data in a cell to just be a number and not allow alphabetic characters. We're going to use this estimated minutes column to show you how to do that. Data validation again. This time we're going to choose whole number. And we're just going to say it has to be greater than 0. And now if I try to type 10 minutes, it's going to give me an error. But if I just type 10, it's okay. And if I try to type 0, again, it gives me an error because it's not bigger than the 0 value that I put in the data validation. And I'm just going to hit escape to set that back to 20. You may have a column where you just want yes or no, and that's easy to do as well. It's very similar to what we did with the assigned to, but I'm going to do something a little bit different here. First, over here, I'm going to type yes in one cell and no in a second cell. These are going to be my options for the list. And then I'm going to select all of the cells in the done column with yes or no answers. There should be yes or no answers. You see that they're not right now. And we're going to data validation, and we're going to choose list again, just like we did for the assigned to. But for source, instead of typing yes and no with a comma between them, we are going to use the yes and no that I put over here in column J as our source list for this cell. And I'm going to click this button to return to the data validation window. And you see it has put the range as the source for that data. And so now I click OK. And again, I have a drop down and I can choose yes or no. Because started isn't one of my valid values, I want to clean that up. So I'm going to go back in and clean these up. And now everything is clean. And if I try to type not started, it gives me the error. I'm just going to cancel. So now that I have data validation on the done column, and it's just yes or no, I want to apply that same yes and no to the parent checked column. And while you can go through the exact same process we used for the done column, there's a faster way to do that. We can copy validation from one cell to another and not overwrite any of the data. To do that, first we're going to select one of the cells in the done column. I'm going to right click and choose copy. And then I'm going to select the cells in the parent checked column. I'm going to right click and choose paste special. And that opens up a window. And we have a lot of options here, but what we are looking for today is just to click validation. And what that does is copies just the data validation from the source cell, the done column, to the cells we've selected. So I select data validation, click OK. And now I have the exact same data validation in the parent checked column, yes and no. And I'm going to clean these up. So now we have data validation in the done column and in the parent checked column. And I'm going to press the escape key to deselect that cell. Now that we have data validation on several columns of this chores sheet, I want to show you a few common mistakes and then how to fix them. The first mistake I want to show you is applying the data validation to just one cell instead of all of the cells. So if I just select the first cell under room and then choose data validation and set that up, now I have data validation in this first cell. If I click on the second cell, I don't have it. There's an easy fix for this. We can go back and copy just like we did before. Copy and then select the rest of the cells, paste special and validation. And now I have the same validation for the rest of the cells in that column. I'm going to quickly add validation to the priority column as well. Now that I have data validation on the priority, and I only set it to allow low, medium, and high, things like important and medium high are not valid entries. So if you create data validation after you already have cells with bad data, again, you have to go back and fix it. And you've seen me do that throughout this demo, but it's something to be aware of. Data validation does not fix existing cells. It only helps with entry going forward. And so you have to go into each cell and set it to the value that you want it to be. Data validation is not about making a spreadsheet fancy. It's about making the right entry easier and the wrong entry harder. That gives you cleaner data, more reliable filters, totals, charts, and pivot tables, and fewer little cleanup problems later. And just as important, it makes the sheet easier to use because people can pick from a list or enter values within a clear range instead of guessing what should go there. Start with one column, add one useful rule, and build from there. Until our next voyage, I wish you smooth sailing.